In the soil right under our feet, in the dust that blows in the wind, and even in fresh water, there's a microscopic predator hiding in plain sight. It's an organism that's so widespread, it's found on pretty much every continent, yet it's so rare as a cause of disease that we've only ever recorded a few hundred cases. But here's the thing. For those unlucky few, getting infected is almost always a death sentence. So today, we are opening the case file on this hidden killer, Balamuthia mandrilaris.
So where does a story like this even begin? Well, our story doesn't start with a human patient in a hospital. No, it starts with a question that really stumped veterinarians back in the 1980s. The entire mystery that brought this pathogen into the light began with an animal. All right, let's open the case file on the very first known victim. This whole thing didn't kick off in some high-tech lab or hospital ward. It actually started in a place that's designed to protect and celebrate life, the San Diego Zoo. Yeah, the discovery of this killer was a real slow burn mystery. It all kicked off back in 1986 when a pregnant mandrill suddenly died from this bizarre brain disease. During the postmortem, scientists looked at the brain tissue and found an amoeba they had never seen before. They just couldn't identify it. It then took another 7 years of really intense research before they could finally give it a name in 1993, Balamuthia mandrilaris, a name that actually honors its very first known victim.
Okay, so now it has a name. And with a name, the scientific community could finally start building a proper profile. What in the world is this thing? Let's break down its identity piece by piece.
So at its most basic level, Balamuthia mandrilaris is a protozoan. That just means it's a single-celled organism. Try to wrap your head around that. An entire predator with all the tools it needs to hunt, to reproduce, and to invade a host, all of that is packed into one single microscopic package. That's what we're up against here.
And it's an endoparasite. Now, that means it does all of its damage from the inside. Think of a tick. That's an ectoparasite. It lives on the outside, on your skin. Well, Balamuthia mandrilaris is the exact opposite. It gets inside your body, invading deep into your tissues and organs, which, as you can imagine, makes it way, way harder to fight.
This amoeba was such an oddball that it actually broke the existing classification system. Seriously, scientists couldn't fit it into any known amoeba family, so they had to create a whole new one just for it, Balamuthiidae. And it's the only known species in its genus. This chart isn't just a boring list of names, it's like a scientific fingerprint. It shows us that this thing occupies a very lonely and very dangerous branch on the tree of life. A huge key to its success is its ability to shapeshift into two completely different forms. First, you've got the trophozoid. Think of this as the active hunter. This is the stage where it's moving, feeding, and just destroying tissue. But when conditions get tough, it can transform into a cyst. This is basically an armored survival pod. It has a triple-layered wall, making it incredibly resistant to our immune defenses and even our best treatments.
So, this brings us to what I think is the central puzzle of Balamuthia mandrilaris. How can an organism that is practically everywhere in our environment cause a disease that is so unbelievably rare? It's a real head-scratcher.
First, let's talk about the everywhere part. Researchers have literally found this amoeba in soil and freshwater all over the globe. For all intents and purposes, this thing is just a normal part of our global ecosystem.
And now for the nowhere part of this paradox. Despite being found all over the planet, there have only been about 300 confirmed human cases reported worldwide. Ever. Just think about that for a second. Billions of people are potentially exposed to this thing every day, yet only a tiny handful actually get sick. This huge gap is one of the biggest mysteries for scientists.
But here's the absolutely terrifying reality behind that rarity. If you happen to be one of those unlucky few to get infected, your chances of survival are practically zero. The mortality rate is over 95%, making it one of the deadliest parasitic infections known to science, period. And in our totally interconnected world, rare definitely doesn't mean isolated. There was a case back in 2013 in the Netherlands that involved a woman who had just been gardening in the Gambia. This was the first case ever confirmed to be picked up in Africa and then diagnosed in Europe. It's just proof that global travel can import this deadly pathogen anywhere at any time. So the big question is, how does the attack actually happen? Let's trace the life cycle of this pathogen to really understand its route of invasion, from the dirt all the way to the human brain. Okay, so this diagram from the CDC basically shows us the entire invasion plan. As you can see over on the left, the amoeba is just chilling in the soil and water, either as the active hunter, the trophozoite, or the dormant cyst. The infection starts when these forms get into the body. This can happen through the lungs, if you inhale contaminated dust, or more commonly, through an open cut or wound in the skin. And from there, the attack really escalates.
Right, so once it's inside, it doesn't just stay put. It manages to get into the bloodstream and basically hitches a ride throughout the entire body. This process is called hematogenous dissemination, and it really only has one primary target in mind, the central nervous system. Once it breaks through the brain's defenses, it causes something called granulomatous amoebic encephalitis, or GAE, which is a slow, relentless, and absolutely devastating inflammation of the brain tissue itself.
For doctors, an infection like this is a frantic race against the clock. But with Balamuthia mandrilaris, that race is made so much harder by these huge challenges in both spotting the enemy and then being able to fight it effectively.
First off, diagnosing it is not simple at all. It takes highly specialized tests on actual tissue samples, advanced antibody detection, or even really complex molecular techniques like PCR and next-generation sequencing. I mean, these are not your routine, everyday procedures, which often leads to these horrible, devastating delays in just getting the right diagnosis in the first place.
But even if you get a confirmed diagnosis, the single biggest hurdle is still ahead. You see, the brain protects itself with this highly selective filter called the blood-brain barrier. It's an amazing defense mechanism designed to keep threats out. But it also means that getting powerful drugs in to fight the amoeba is incredibly difficult.
And this is where something as simple as your geography can mean the difference between life and death. Internationally, especially in the US, the CDC often coordinates treatment with a complex cocktail of powerful drugs like milfocine. But in a country like the Netherlands, where this disease is virtually unheard of, those highly specialized drugs might just not be in stock. That logistical delay, literally just waiting for the right medication to arrive, can be fatal.
Now, this is not a closed case, not by a long shot. The investigation into Balamuthia mandrilaris is very much ongoing, and researchers are constantly discovering new information about this elusive killer.
And this is wild. The story has come full circle. Just very recently, this same amoeba was identified as the cause of death for both an orangutan and a chimpanzee in a Spanish zoo. It's a really sobering reminder that this pathogen isn't some relic of the past. It is an active, ongoing threat not just to us, but to some of the world's most endangered animals as well.
To put this whole case file together, we synthesized information from dozens of scientific papers and reports using a Gemini deep search. If you want to dive into the data yourself, we've compiled a full list of all of our sources in the Notebook LM document, which you can find linked in the description.
So from a single mysterious death in a zoo to a global microscopic threat, the story of Balamuthia mandrilaris is a pretty stark reminder of the hidden dangers that can lurk in our environment. It makes you wonder, right? What does its ability to jump from soil to primates to humans tell us about the other emerging diseases we might have to face in the future? We'd love to hear what you think in the comments. And if you found this breakdown valuable, please subscribe for more explainers, and definitely let us know what complex topic we should tackle next.